Okay, now we are going to continue our review for the Unit 4 lecture exam by talking about energy and mineral resources. So here are your learning objectives that you should know for the exam. And then you ought to have read Chapter 12 out of your textbook that covers this material. And this first slide here, where does energy come from in the Earth system? Okay, that's not going to be on the exam, so I would not worry about that. Okay, then these charts here, how much energy does the world use, and how much energy does the world use, and how much energy does the United States use? I would just be familiar with these three charts and be able to interpret them on the exam. So you don't want to memorize the numbers on here, but if you were given one of these charts, you ought to be able to read it and answer questions about it. Okay, now let's talk about what a hydrocarbon is. So hydro means hydrogen, and then carbons means carbon. So it's going to be a string of carbons that are hooked together and then surrounded by hydrogens. And you can see that the simplest hydrocarbon is methane. And then as you progressively put these hydrocarbons together to make longer and longer chains, you find that eventually they will hook to each other to make a liquid. And if you continue making them larger and larger, they actually even form solids. So these are the raw materials that are going to be in natural gas and petroleum. So that when you take these things and you mix it with oxygen and a flame, they are combustible and they will give off energy. So you've got to know, how do hydrocarbons form? So how does natural gas and oil, how do they form in the ground? So you should be able, that would make for a good essay question, to describe the process by which you start with microscopic organisms and then you end up with oil. Okay, and then, so this continues talking about what happens to these hydrocarbons once they have formed and how they can make their way up to the surface and then be trapped by a cap rock, and then that will, the seal rock then keeps it from going any higher, and then it ponds underneath there, and then you drill into it. Okay, this one here, how are conventional hydrocarbons recovered? Well, that's with an oil well, so I pretty much, you should know how that works. Okay, where are the conventional hydrocarbons found? So this would make for if I gave you this chart, then you ought to be able to tell me which countries have the most amount of hydrocarbons. Okay, then you have unconventional hydrocarbons. So these are hard to get out of the ground, either because they permeate rocks, or they're so thick that they won't flow to the surface. So I would like for you to know, how does fracking work? Okay, so make sure that you know that, and then also make sure that you know how you can heat sands that contain oil to get the oil out. So that would be something that could be on the exam. Here's another one, where are unconventional hydrocarbons found? And so again, if I gave you the chart, then you ought to be able to tell me which countries have the most amounts of unconventional hydrocarbons. Okay, this is an important one. Be able to tell me, how does coal form? Okay, where does coal come from? And then how does coal form? And then here's another chart that shows where is coal found in the world. I would not worry about this one. How can you turn coal into liquid gas? So Don't worry about that one. Okay, and so let's take a break. When we come back, we will talk about alternate sources of energy.